Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back in time, into history, to meet and understand yet another of the ancient CCGs that brought us into the modern way of collectible card games in the army? Granted, some of these CCGs are still around, others are not. This one in particular is long since gone. Today we'll be talking about Flights of Fantasy, which is a game. Sort of. We'll talk. But if you're ready to go and join me back in time, back into the 1990s, grab me. I'm your host and guide here, Destini, and I'll grab your hand, take you with me, open up a temporal portal back in time, where we can learn about this game and its origins, its creation, and what kind of products it has. Time portal's ready. Remember to tip your host, your guide here. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, and let me know in the comments below what you think of this. And have you played Flights of Fantasy? To the past we go. To the age of the 90s. To Flights of Fantasy! Right. You arrived. Well, now that we're here, we should learn about Flights of Fantasy. Some basics about it. What is this? What is this game? Well, it's out of print. It was a trading card game art set. Basically, it was a trading card art set that was turned into a collectible card game near the end of its development, and marketed as a CCG. It's technically the second CCG ever released, but it really isn't a serious contender to something like Magic, which is the first ever considered true CCG, by definition of what we use for collectible card games. Yeah. And it was published by Destini Productions and released in September of 1994. It was made to be played with 2 players, technically, though you could play with more, but there was only special rules for that. There weren't any real rules for that. It took about 5 minutes to set up, 60 minutes to play. I'll go over all those details about it, but yeah, it's a little bit of a mess. To talk about that mess, we have to talk about what the hell is Destini Productions. Your box. It exists. Destini exists. You can't find much about it. It seems that Flights of Fantasy was the only thing it ever actually produced. Now, if you would go to something like Board Game Geek, which has a good archive of a lot of things, they link to the artist who was a big part of this, which we'll talk about in a minute, Ed Beard Jr.'s site about this. So, is Ed Beard Jr. Destini Productions? Is he a member of it? Did he take over all of it when they went away? Did they even really exist the same way? There's a lot of questions about Destini we may never really know without talking to Edward. And I don't know how many answers he's provided, because I'm not found him answering any of these types of questions. Wouldn't mind interviewing him sometime about his art and stuff. That might be a thing in the future. But for now, Destini Productions existed, and it made Flights of Fantasy. And then it didn't make anything else. And then it kind of just faded away. Let's talk Ed. Edward Beard Jr., Ed Beard Jr. Why am I showing the Magic card? Ed did the art for this. Edward, here. It's a prolific artist. Known for doing over 180 Magic cards. The art for over 180. It includes this original Nicol Bolas from Legends, but 180 is a lot. He has created art for over 1,000 published products over his 40 years of art. His dragon art from Dragon's Calendars. He's done work for posters, prints, t-shirts, mugs, puzzles, collectibles. He originally started work on things like hot rods and monster types for custom work on there, for airbrush in the automotive industry. He's worked with Magic the Gathering, Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, Hobbit art, Dungeons & Dragons. The name goes on. The places go on where he's done art. He's been an guest artist at plenty of conventions and locations. He shows up at Ren Fairs. He tends to go hang out up until the present year to the Bay Area Renaissance Festival in Tampa. So if you have a chance and you're nearby there, you can go see him. And he has a mass amount of art that he's done, and you can still get things of. You can still get Flights of Fantasy from him. He still does some commissions and art proofs and stuff like that. So Yeah. Big prolific artist. He's been in the industry, done a lot of stuff. He did the art for every single card in Flights of Fantasy. Everyone. Let's talk about that history. This is an ad for Flights of Fantasy, and understand its productions. So this is a set that has 90/118/128 cards. We'll explain what those card numbers are and why there's the 3 numbers, but they were sold in booster packs. It's not really a CCG the way you'd think of it because it's very gimmicky, but it was sold as one. The mechanics appear incredibly graphical, kind of an afterthought. Basically, what Flights of Fantasy appears to have been was art cards created by Ed Beard Jr. According to him, it began its original productions in May of '92. And Destini wanted this to be the kind of bridge between fantasy art collectors, literary enthusiasts, and gamers. That was the idea of Flights of Fantasy, an all-in-one product. The core set, the main division of it, is the 90 cards, where it's 3 subsets of 30 cards each. 30 that are science fiction, 30 fantasy, 30 horror. And these have intense storylines in the back. Here's the connections between art, literary, and gamers. So basically, we've got these really great art cards in the front, stories on the back, and a game also kind of too. Corresponding with the storyline was that game. Yeah. And again, we have Ed Beard Jr. who did all the illustrations. Painstakingly put together art that matched the storylines. So that's kind of the origin development of Flights of Fantasy as we know it. Talk about Flights of Fantasy and what we got from it. So this, the point of this was also to take concepts of role-playing games in a lot of ways. Highly realistic, detailed fantasy artwork, graphic novel-like backs and cards, kind of put these together for a new concept. Define a new way of playing a game. That's what Destini seemed to want. And each box that was provided here, you're rewarded with not 1 or 2, but you would have 3 complete core sets. They were supposed to be collated that you would get that in each box. So you would be able to have 3 different games of the 3 different theme sets if you wanted to. So, you could mix and match as you wanted in a lot of ways. And there were promo cards there too, we'll talk about them. But yes, the boxes themselves were sold in 36 card booster packs with 10 cards in each box. The battles were supposed to be quick and fierce, and played in a variety of ways, but again, the game elements are pretty loose, so we'll talk about them when we talk about the games. But yeah, pretty much are art cards with stories and some game mechanics with 1 core pack set was what came out. There was an expansion set being worked on that would bolster the character roster, add official multiplayer support with more supplemental rules. It never came out. It never finished. What came in it? Who knows? Let's talk the cards. So, we of course had our... And I'm trying to match these... This is some of the art of the cards that I was able to locate and find online in areas. You can find some art of it. I'm trying to match the 3 themes as best I can with this art. They don't exactly match because they're sets of 6. But I wanted to show off the great art that Ed Beard did. Ed Beard Jr. does great art. He's a great artist. I'm not going to call him my favorite artist, but I can respect that it's really good art. Anyway, 30 fantasy-themed cards, which were numbered 1 to 30. There were 30 horror-themed cards. I thought the geisha one here was a pretty good one for the horror theme, numbered 1 to 30. 30 sci-fi-themed cards, numbered 1 to 30. And that was your traditional 90 cards. Then comes our 10 and 10 cards, which are some other types of cards that were in there. There were 2 checklist cards, to track what cards you had. 3 rules cards, which technically were where the rules of the game came from. 10 puzzle cards, where there are 9 puzzle pieces and an overview card. There was also 12 gallery cards, 3 special insert cards, one bonus rules card, 2 signed gallery cards, and 7 promo cards, which 5 are bonus rule cards, 2 promotional cards. So that would make your 128, but there really was... It's a mess here. But a bunch of these were kind of promo or special cards, so it was really also kind of 118. Anyway, let's talk about how the game works. Because, hey, it's good to know how this game works and understand it. And I'm showing off one of the promo cards here, which is technically on the wiki site here, because the promo cards would add more rules. It was one of the ways we got more rules than the basic rules. 2 types of cards. We'll talk. Let's draw ourselves back to beginning with the game here. Okay. So the storylines on the back of the cards, and all the characters are going to be either good or evil. And you have a mission to carry out their fate. That's the point of the game. You also determine whether they are good or evil by the E or G that predates their name of the card on each card. So you will see of those 30 cards from each thing, it'll either have an E for an evil character or G for a good character. You will have a deck yourself of either G or E. Your opponent will have the other. So, yes. You're determining whether they're good or evil by that. Yes. Anyway. Players then agree on how many cards are being played with the declaration of a game. Basically the card, how many cards you're going to use, which is the number of rounds you're going to do. So, 1 evil character versus 1 good character is 1 round. It's a minimum of 15 cards per side for both good and evil. So, 15 rounds is the minimum you're going to play. If you're going to customize it to anything else, do odd numbers. 15 if you're ever going to play this. We'll talk about why 15 is a good number. Yes. The amount of cards on each side have to match them. So if I'm 15 cards, you're 15 cards. If I'm doing 17 cards, you're 17 cards. Also note, and this is going to be a very important thing, bonuses. Your cards will have a bonus number on them. Basically, maybe it say, well, like +4 strength. We'll talk about what those bonuses mean, but those bonus numbers have to add up to the same number as your opponent's. So if I have, 100 worth of bonus in my 15 cards, my opponent has to have 100 worth of bonus in their 15 cards. We're playing on equal footing. This is going to come down to random chance whether you win or lose. There's very little skill. Anyway, you have a second deck. A separate enhancement card deck from the rest of your deck that you're putting aside. You do not have to have the same amount of enhancement cards as your opponent in order to play. So you can have your own set of enhancement cards, which are special cards, which add more rules. Just like the promo cards, add more rules. You shuffle your cards randomly, placing them with the on the playing surface, illustration side up. And you draw the top card of your deck, basically, and determine various things about it at that point in time. So, yes. So, you shuffle up your deck of characters. You shuffle up... Well, I don't know if you need to shuffle up your enhancement deck, because I don't know. I haven't seen many of the enhancement cards to know what the enhancement cards do, to know that I think you just have a separate enhancement deck that you can pull upon strategically to enhance things in certain ways, and when you pull upon it, can be the difference between winning or losing when it comes to more than just the actual base game. So your enhancements and bonus cards, adding extra rules, change things in pure luck. Because we're now equal number of cards, equal number of bonuses. We haven't even got playing the game. We just got our cards. And there's a discard pile where you put illustration side in. Alright. Let's talk about what it means to play around. Because playing around will define how the game works. So, there are 5 realms of battle where the good and evil characters will challenge each other. Will they have the weapons necessary? They will be the sorcery, strength, stamina, intellect, agility. They are played in order that they are listed there. Your character may have a bonus to one of those realms. Maybe a bonus strength, maybe a bonus stamina, maybe intellect, etc., etc. To complete a battle in each of those rounds, roll it up. D8. Yep. Battle the cards by rolling a D8 in each of those rounds. You roll 5 D8. you make note of that number. If I rolled a 7 and my opponent rolled a 4, we make note of those numbers. If I have a bonus from my character, I add that on there. So if I have that +4 strength, I rolled a strength, I rolled a 7, I now have 11. Your winner of that round is determined by the highest point total of the round. Basically, you complete all 5 of those dice rolls and add them together and determine whether the good or evil character has won. I roll 5d8, add 1 point bonus, and it is randomly determined which of my character's points is there. It could be my character that has +6, it could be the one that has +2. I don't know. Remember, the bonus points are going to be the same for both of us. If we each have 100 bonus points, we're going to have a bonus 100 over our dice rolls. So you keep track of that, and you keep track of that final total at the end of that round. If I ended up with, let's say, on 5d8, 23, and my opponent ended up with 20, we keep those numbers in. Why? Because then we play our 15 rounds of this, and we add our numbers together, are 75 dice rolls. Add them all together, and that determines the winner. Yes. It's a dice roll. It's a card game where you roll dice. One D8 a score sheet. 75 dice rolls. I hope I roll 75 D8 better than my opponent because our bonuses are going to be the same. In the case of a tie, you play another round with a card of your choice from your discard. And if you tie again, you do another one. And then, of course, enhancement cards, bonus cards will do stuff, add extra game rules, will possibly be the make or break between just dice rolls. It's a game. This counts as a game. Sort of. But that's how you play Fights in Fantasy. The cards do something? Yeah. It's a dice rolling game that just happens to have really nice art cards. And that's kind of where I think I'll leave it here. Fights in Fantasy is a set of art cards. Trading art cards look really nice. Look really cool. Great art from an artist who's well renowned throughout the fantasy area of a lot of art. Probably done a lot of other art too. And yeah. The game is very methodical. Very much so like an accounting game. Like taxes, I think so. I heard someone say on a comment. Yeah. I really wouldn't recommend the game much, except if you want to try it out once. But the card art is interesting. Really cool. And, like, I think that's the best point of Flights of Fantasy. You can feel the tacked-on nature of the game a lot here. These were cards that had really great art and a story connected. And that was what was major here. The game existed. Now, I'm not going to say it could not have evolved more. Certainly speaking, if more sets, more rules came out, it could have became more of a game. A dice-rolling game based on used with cards isn't necessarily a bad game. It just is so bare bones at this point in time, where it ended up as, that it really isn't much. Now, I will link in the description here to Ed Beard Jr.'s site. You can still get Flights of Fantasy if you want. If you want to just get collectible great art, I think he's got it on sale there. You want to go check it out? It does link there. So yeah, there was at one point in time some things in the store. I'm fairly certain he might still have the Flights of Fantasy in the store. At least things linked to it. But nonetheless, you can see his stuff there, all his art and stuff, and why he's a renowned artist and stuff. It's a great showcase of his art. Is it a great game? No. But hey, it existed right after Magic, and so it's technically a CCG in the most boiled down technicality of all. It's not really considered the second major release. Not really a second CCG. It kind of is, but kind of technically is, but it's that weird kind of point of time of someone saw what was going on there and said, hey, can we attach a game to this? Yeah? Cool. I'll leave that there. I hope you enjoyed this history of Flights of Fantasy. It's an interesting one. Honestly speaking, I learned more about it than I thought I would. And of course, learning about the gameplay was a heck of a thing. I did manage to find the rules, but I also saw some videos of some people who just did not like the game and talk about the rules of it too, which did help a little bit in trying to understand the nature of it. It's a game. I hope you enjoyed learning about it too. It's an interesting point in time in our history of gaming, and it goes to show you things like this have appeared before, and they'll appear again. Someone that's trying to take advantage of, add into a conversation that's going on. In this case, the developing CCG thing that was coming out in the 90s, and this one wasn't successful. Could it have been? Sure, but it just didn't have enough to catch on to begin with. The art wasn't enough on its own. Make sure to check out the rest of my stuff. I go live on Twitch, I go over on YouTube where I pub up all my tabletop stuff, my schedule for all these things, over on my social medias where you can check me out, see updates on the schedule. That's Twitch for live streaming, which is gaming, tabletop stuff, live plays of RPGs, discussing tabletop, at Saturdays at 6, all those great things. All the tabletop stuff up on YouTube. Anyway, that schedule's over on Discord, Blue Sky, X/Twitter, and my mini part of my YouTube. It goes in that order for importance, so I'm probably going to put stuff over on Discord first. Thank you for joining me here. Let me know if you've played Flights of Fantasy, if you've owned it. What do you think of, would this have just been better if it was just an art set? If they had stuck to the trading card, fantasy kind of art set with maybe the story connected to it? If you think tacking the game on hurt it more? I'm interested in what your thoughts on it. I think that probably would have done better if it didn't have the game. Adding in the game, they needed more time for something like that if they were going to add in the game. But, tell me your thoughts. And of course, remember to like, subscribe, and bell to support the account. When you do, tell me those thoughts in the comments. Alright, let me get going. Have a great day. Thanks for checking me out either live on Twitch or over on YouTube again. And until the next time, I bid you all out there a deep and wonderful farewell.